Hello everyone, my name is Jan Lang and this is my persuasive speech assignment. Today we're going to talk about how the guns should be banned for local people and only the police or the government would be able to purchase any kinds of weapons. Banning of selling guns from people, especially for teenagers, are very important because why would the teenager need a gun, right? Now let's talk about gun control. So gun control is one of the most disruptive issues in American politics. Nowadays, it is given the fact that most of the people in the United States have their own guns in their homes, but do we really need it? Well, in the United States, it is legal to carry a concealed handgun in public in all 50 states. But do we purposely need to have any kinds of firearms in our homes? Well, according to the Gun Violence Archive, or the GVA, the total number of gun violence deaths on the date of August 9, 2020 is 25,428 deaths. I can say that this is very high numbers for just having a gun violence, right? Well, from the GVA, it is shown that half of the deaths are from doing suicides and the other half is from homicide, murder, or unintentional. Now, would you still want to purchase any kinds of firearms? Well, it is indeed that having firearms in our possession is good in order to protect ourselves. But think about if there are no guns for everyone, wouldn't that help us to live longer? Well, think about the old days. They never had a gun. They only have spears or any kinds of other weapons to use their personal belongings, right? Well, they also even survive longer. I mean, they only would die if they died from hunger or being old or just being killed by an animal. Let's talk about how I will demonstrate this persuasive speech. First, I will demonstrate how the current situation of more gun control would reduce gun violence or gun deaths. Second is about guarding victims of domestic violence. And lastly is the legal requirements. So for the gun control would reduce gun deaths. The process of gun control was signed by the President Lyndon B. Johnson on the October 22, 1968. This law is a policy that regulates the manufacturers, sales, transfers, possession, or use of other firearms by the civilians. The U.S. government should act more about the gun control laws that prevents unqualified people to own guns because of the increase of the gun violence, the homicides, and the rarely use of the self-defense. Did you know that according to Harvard University analysis, only 0.9% of crimes from 2007 to 2011 who uses guns for defending? I mean, who uses a gun for defending now, right? I mean, would you really want to use a gun for defending or just maybe learn some martial arts or something? I mean, it's safer, right? It's not. It's also safer for your kids if you have one. The second one was the guarding victims of domestic violence. Domestic violence is very common in the United States, especially for women. The presence of a firearm during the violence increases the death of the woman. Do you know why? Well, if I have a gun and I'm putting it to a woman, what would the woman would do? Think about it. For me, I would do basically just run. And what would the person who has the gun would do? Well, he or she would basically shoot her, right? I mean, that increases the level of the deaths for the women. for having the domestic violence. It is also told that guns in the hands of domestic abusers acts as a serious and lethal threat. An abuser access to firearm is a serious threat to victims, making it 5 times more likely that women will be killed. Third one is the legal requirements. Obtaining firearm weapons are very easy to access, especially now that we have any black markets and other stores that sells any kinds of firearms, and that can be easily accessed by the teenagers, especially for the high schoolers. Firearms are the federal level requires that citizens and legal resident must be at least 18 years old of purchase for shotguns and rifles and ammunitions. First of all, why would an 18 years old would want to buy a gun, right? I mean, why would he or she uses the gun for? I mean, this will just increase the criminals or the gangs with weapons in the streets. An 18-year-old man was reportedly playing with a gun when it fired, hitting and killing another 18 years old. I hope this becomes a lesson for you guys who have any kinds of firearms. If you do, I highly recommend not using it, or maybe just hiding it somewhere safe. For the transition, now have just demonstrated how the gun control is very important and can reduce the death toll because of the gun violence. Well, now let's talk about how the funding for the gun policy is worth it. Is it really worth it funding the gun violence? I mean the gun violence. Well, researchers have said that gun violence problems should be evaluated like any other public health epidemic. The funding is purposely a step to combat the gun violence and rash of school shootings, said by the Senator Patrick Leahy. This funding would be a great step for reducing the death tolls of kids being shot and basically reducing the gun violence. Today I have explained to you the importance of gun violence and terrible deaths caused by the firearms. First, we talk about the gun control would reduce deaths, and second was about the guarding victims of domestic violence, and lastly was the legal requirements. Lastly, the transition about the funding of gun control is worth funding for. Guns are not the answer, guys. I hope this becomes a lesson. And here's my visual aid that can be helpful for you guys. Well, thank you very much.